So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Green Impact webinar on repairing and sharing initiatives at university. So these are part of the circular economy concept. And my name is Ann-Sofie. I work as a Green Impact Program Manager for Students Organizing for Sustainability International. And the name and the logo might seem familiar to you. So we are working closely together with SOS UK, but we are working a little bit more with organizations in Europe. So to give you a little bit of an insight in where Green Impact is run outside of the UK, there's 5 universities currently doing Green Impact in Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. And outside of that, also Green Impact is being run in Australasia by our sister organization ACTS. And SOS International does 2 things. So one of these is mainly the Green Impact program, but it also supports green offices. And maybe you've heard of that, but a green office model is a way for students to really take matters into their own hands and implement sustainability within their own institution. And so the green offices are student-led platforms that are staff supported, and they work on sustainability by, in the first place, organizing events, running campaigns, programs that have to do with making the community of the university more sustainable. And on the other hand, they also work together closely with the policymakers to implement, for example, greening policies, or to make the curriculum more sustainable with, of course, the input from students themselves. So it's really a nice way to get students participate in the whole sustainability story. And the connection between green offices and Green Impact in Europe is that out of the 5 universities that run Green Impact, 3 of them are actually organized by the green offices themselves. So it's students organizing the program for the staff. And that's also a nice collaboration, because usually students only get in touch with professors or teaching staff, and now they also get in touch a lot with administrative staff, technical staff, anyone really involved at the university. And so, yeah, let's dive right in. Today's topic is circular economy. The title says repairing and sharing initiatives, which is part of a circular economy. So let's first have a look at what circular economy is all about and how we then can implement it within a university context. So for the definition of circular economy, I really like this one by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So you can see Dame Ellen MacArthur on the left. She is an English sailor woman, and she has this foundation that is dedicated to facilitating the transition towards a more circular economy, mainly for businesses, but also for NGOs and so on. And so the definition goes as following. Let me read it loud for you. Looking beyond the current take, make, waste extractive industrial model, the circular economy aims to redefine growth, focusing on positive society-wide benefits. And it entails gradually decoupling economic activity from the consumption of finite resources, fossil fuels and so on, and designing waste out of the system. Underpinned by a transition to renewable energy sources, the circular model builds economic, natural, and social capital. And I put the last sentence in red because it reflects a little bit the vision also of sustainability as being more than just the planet part, but also including people and profits in there. So being quite a holistic approach towards transitioning the world and readying us for a more sustainable future. And so if we take the words from this foundation into a more visual approach, we can see here on the left the linear model from resources. So we take certain resources, many of them are non-reusable, or many of them are finite, fossil fuels, oil, and so on. And then we produce something. So we make a product with that, and then we use it as consumers until we have to throw it away, and then it's wasted. The sad thing here is that for many objects, more than we actually can afford, to treat these objects like that, is that we consume something or use something for barely a minute or less. For example, spoons that are used to stir coffee, or like straws or single-use cups. The production time and value and efforts and the CO2 that is produced by producing these objects is, of course, much bigger and longer in time than we actually make use of that before it's wasted. And then the waste time, the time that it takes to disintegrate, if that's even possible, or to recycle it, is also quite long. So that's kind of the main issue, I would say, for our current style of consuming. Oops. All right. So, and then also, if we throw something away, the question is, of course, where is away? You might think like out of sight, out of mind is away. That's right. But it still remains on this planet. Of course, it's not going anywhere soon, especially if it's not organic waste. For everything else, there's a long time that it takes to make sure that it disappears or it goes really away. But even if we look outside of our planetary boundaries, so if you look in space, for example, this picture is really illustrating how much space junk there is out there. So currently there are 2,000 satellites orbiting the Earth, but there are 3,000 more that are just like dead and littering space. So you can imagine that this gives some challenges. For example, the International Space Station has been hit a couple of years ago by like a very tiny small piece of debris, and it's caused already a crack in the window. So you can imagine what the danger is if a big piece of debris would hit anyone or anything in the space that we rely on. But before cleaning up space, we of course have to also clean up our own planet. We have lots of litter already lying around, and that's where a circular economy model comes in and tries to fix some of that. So on the left, you can see the same linear model that I showed you before, and on the right is the circular model. So it looks a little bit more complex. It's not just like the take, make, and waste procedure, but it makes sure that the use of consumption phase is drawn out as long as possible. So we try to take the resources, and before wasting them, to make sure that we get the most out of these resources and reuse them or recycle them so they can get another purpose as well. And you can see that there are 6 phases here. So we have the rethinking and reducing, then redesigning, reusing. This is more from a consumer's point of view, repairing, remanufacturing, and then also recycling, and then recovering, and then it's waste. So you might think that recycling is quite low in this model. That's because recycling usually requires quite some energy input. For example, if you want to recycle plastic, you actually need more plastic to make something new out of it. So it's not possible to recycle plastic completely from scratch into something new. You always have to add more to it. And that's actually the case for many other resources that we just like use and then throw away without a second thought. Now, to make it a little bit more visible, I have some examples for every phase of the circular economy model. So for the first one, rethinking and reducing, I put this picture of a shampoo bar. I'm sure many of you already use it, but it's not like a very innovative thing. It's not something new. It's been around for years, soap. So it's just like a simple soap bar. And what it does is that it reduces the packaging. It also reduces the need for water. So if you buy a shampoo bottle, what we buy is a lot of plastic, a little bit of soap, and then lots of water in it. And the shampoo bar is able to just like give you the soap itself, the product itself, without any of the unnecessary materials that are used around that. So this is one way to rethink a product or to reduce unnecessary packaging. A second example is redesigning. So this is a picture of a new type of vending machine, and the vending machine runs on tap water. So they can just put it close to a tap, and then it's connected to a syrup machine. And so you can just come in and put your bottle underneath, and then you can click on the screen until it's full, and then you just pay the price of what you just like put in your bottle. So it's quite an easy and cheap way as well, and also more healthy because there's less sugars in it, to firstly avoid packaging, also avoid energy consumption, because the cooling and the storing of cans and bottles, for example, within a vending machine is quite high. And yeah, it's a new way of interacting with flavors and with drinks, if you want to get a drink at the office, for example. The third phase is about reusing, and I'm sure you're aware with what's going on with this picture. So unless you're working in a medical environment or you have to wear specific types of nose and mouth protection, a reusable mask suffices in these times. And yeah, it's just a simple way to not throw any single-use ones away anymore, and just to switch to reusable ones that you can wash. Fourth stage here is repairing and remanufacturing. So when something is broken, when something is no longer usable, you can look into ways to repair that easily, especially when it comes to clothing, for example. Clothing can be fixed quite easily, but we don't tend to do that because the repairing cost of some clothes might be even higher than the purchasing costs, which is, it's of course crazy. The fast fashion scene is really not doing us any favors here. But in most cases, when we have the skills, it doesn't take that much to sew a button, for example, or to repair something, then we can just easily reuse the stuff that has been broken but is now fixed. You can also stimulate local economies by, for example, going to the shoemaker or having your stuff fixed quite easily. And then for recycling, we are all aware of that. This is a picture I took from the last webinar on single-use plastics. So this is one brand that offers recycled toilet paper, because sometimes we cannot reuse stuff, but then the option is that we can consume recycled materials to do so. There are some people who are quite engaged in ecological lifestyle, and they could, for example, they use towels and then they wash them, but I feel like that's quite far away for me to engage with, but it's an option, of course. And then recovering is the last resort, let's say, before we waste something. And an example of that is the Too Good To Go app. I'm not sure if it's available in UK, I think so, but it's an app that allows you as a customer to go shop at restaurants or bakeries or like groceries, and to pick up leftovers for quite a low price. And so it saves you a lot of food, but it also saves you a lot of money, and it also helps shops to get rid of their materials that they cannot sell any longer, and they should bin at the end of the day, and it still gives them a little bit of revenue. So these are some examples. Of course, today we're going to focus on reusing, repairing, remanufacturing. Upcycling is also part of it, but the examples I just gave you are about individual initiatives. So this is something you can do on your own or as a family. And today we'll go we'll see a little bit more about how these initiatives can be scaled up and be used as something that's benefiting a larger collective, a community of staff and students. Okay, let me quickly check the chat. Okay, you also have Olio. Yes, that's also a good initiative. Yeah, toilet paper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure where the toilet paper is produced. I also thought it was even Australia, so I'm not sure. But there are some alternatives around in Europe. I'm not sure in UK. There must be. Okay, so before I give you some concrete examples or inspiration, let's think a little bit about why circular economy could benefit university context specifically. And you can also put your answers in the chat, and I'll have a look at that first before I give you some of the ideas I came up with myself. So feel free to write down in the chat any benefits you think regarding planet, people, and profit when it comes to implementing a more circular economy in your own university or in higher education sector in general. Yeah, exactly. Reduce cost of waste disposal. Yeah, reduction of transport. Yeah, the more packaging, the bigger, and then yeah. Yeah, so we already have two benefits on the profit side: reduce procurement costs. Okay, maybe Britta, can you elaborate a little bit in the chat? Do you mean like because materials can be reused, you don't have to procure single-use items all the time? You can just buy once or twice and then it stays on? Yeah, exactly. That's it too. Yeah, great. All right, and then for the planet, do you have any idea as to, I mean, it's quite straightforward, but how could a circular economy benefit the planet or the more ecological side of things? Okay, I'll give you less resources used. Yeah, great. I'll give you some examples, but you can always add more, like we do with using warped. I don't know that. Warpits. Oh, warpits. Okay. Yeah, Sue, feel free to elaborate in the chat. I don't know what it is. Yeah. So for the planetary benefits, we reduce, of course, pollutions. Could be yeah, materials that are just thrown out and that soak into the soil, or it could also be water pollution, anything that's littering. And this is very visual. For example, if we look on campus and there's a lot of waste lying around, it's just, yeah, it's a very visual example of how our economy is not yet circular. A second benefit could be that we reduce extraction of finite resources, especially fossil fuels, oils that are made to then specifically make plastics. So we also avoid also water, for example, to produce stuff time and time again. And as a result, you can lower CO2 emissions because even if, for example, the university runs completely on green energy, there's still lots of resources that go into the production of materials, and that's actually a hidden cost that is not always very visible to universities. They have difficulty calculating it because it comes from everywhere and you just like import it or buy it or procure it, and you don't have a lot of transparency as to how much energy or fossil fuels or CO2 gets into there or comes out of it during the production process. And I see an explanation on Warpit. It's an online system to get rid of things you don't need, but which others can use. Yeah, okay, so is it kind of like a second-hand platform? Yeah, it's very nice to connect people on there and to make sure that things get reallocated. All right, for the social benefits then, a circular economy could increase accessibility. For example, instead of having everyone buy their own stuff that they can use only like once or twice a year, giving them access to materials that they can just borrow and then give back, most of the time at a free, just for free or at a very low price. This also increases accessibility for many people in your community. And then when it comes to reducing poverty, for example, when it comes to food waste, you probably know that 1/3 of all that we produce, which is 3 billion kilogram of foodstuff is actually thrown out, it's bins. And so also closing the loop in that regard and making sure that people get the food that is out there and that they get access to that can also help. For example, I'm sure that your canteens are already working on making sure that demand and supply fit, but often you have leftovers in canteens, and there are some systems in place that can help students or staff to pick up leftovers or to distribute it to, for example, how do you say it? Organizations that have that provide food for people with less access to it, so it's also quite a social way of interacting with materials. It can improve health. So some studies already found that living next to a landfill, for example, or a waste facility can actually have serious implications for your health. And we also see that materials or products that are working on making it more circular. For example, the shampoo bar, they often also include natural ingredients, so it's softer on the skin, or they don't have like microplastics and so on. So they usually, not all of them, they try to take into account also the health consequences of the product itself, or they try to make it more user-friendly for everyone and so on. A last option here is that closing the loop also creates more transparency. And I think this ties in neatly with what I think Brita was saying, that if you pass on products, then you can also follow and track it. So once it's produced, usually there's not a lot of transparency on the production side, but once it's produced and it circulates within the premises of the university, you can still follow it and see what it's going through, instead of just like binning it or wasting it in the end, and then it's not any of our business anymore. In this way, you can create more transparency in certain supply chains. Sorry. Okay, and then for profit, already mentioned here was the lower waste processing costs. Definitely the case, less waste, less money needed to process it. Also, as a university, there's lots of opportunities to do innovative research, circular economy. It sounds a bit like economy, but it's actually a very interdisciplinary concept, and it's also a very good way for different disciplines to get stimulating research done on a topic, finding alternatives, finding alternative systems, or connecting people, like on the WARPIT platform, to make sure that people can organize themselves to take the most out of the materials that are available already. Hi, Ellen, thank you for joining. Also less storage costs, yes, exactly, yeah. And the last one is to save energy, water, and then also storage costs. So there's a lot of cost saving involved, not only in the production side, but also when the products are being used and reused, then you can also save storage space. People also needed to order them and to take care of them. Okay, so let's go into our first example. So this one is a lab-focused example, and I just, one part of lab equipment, of course, is the PPE, is a personal protective equipment, and I put a lab coat here in goggles. What I've noticed, I don't know if it's the same for you, so please let me know in the chat, but many students here, they have to follow lab classes, or like 1 or 2 courses throughout their whole study in the lab, and therefore they need like a lab coat and goggles. But when they graduate, they don't need it anymore. So they just throw it out, or it's sitting there in their new homes. And it's kind of a pity, because even if they need a lab coat, or even if they will need lab coats for their career, usually they get one from the office, right, or from the company, so they don't need the one used in college anyway. And so it would be a good idea to collect these lab coats and goggles and to provide them as a second-hand material to newcomers. If the newcomers are first years, that's also complicating things, because it's difficult to communicate to people who are not yet on campus. And so a good idea to focus on, for example, students who have to take lab classes in the second or third year or their master's year. And so then they can like have the second-hand stuff, and then they hand it down again at the end of the semester. It's quite a simple trick, and it requires a little bit of organization and mainly a lot of communication, but it can be done quite easily. And it's also quite an easy way to get involved within circular economy. It's also much cheaper for the students, which they, of course, appreciate. And then for staff, of course, these people working in labs, dedicated lab staff, they have their own materials, they have their own coats and goggles. But sometimes it still happens that if visitors come along, or if they have short-term researchers or students who are doing a thesis research or like a very short internship, that they supply single-use lab coats for them. So the plastic ones that are just like thrown away. So it could be worth looking into ways to replace the single-use ones with reusable ones and have them washed at the end of the visit. So that's just one simple example. You can always scale it up to other types of equipment. For example, if there's like one piece of or one appliance that is used not that often in the lab, it can also be worth looking to other labs and see how maybe you could organize yourself or have like a reservation tool in place to make sure that the appliance is used more often by different people or different labs to kind of like join forces and yeah, make the best out of that. Within the Green Impact programs that I run, I've seen people sharing refrigerators, for example, especially like the minus 80 degrees Celsius ones. They can share it with multiple labs and store their materials. And yeah, also other equipment, if it's not used at all, or if it's used very little, it also begs the question, where did this budget come from? Where should it go to? And how could we maybe join forces among the lab people to make sure that this is used optimally? Okay, I have one comment which I will read aloud because I think it's a nice anecdote. Yeah, one of the issues we have anecdotally heard of within research is that grants often require physical items to be bought. For example, physical servers rather than using cloud-based services. This creates an issue as IT equipment becomes obsolete so quickly nowadays and is hence difficult to repurpose. Yeah, I don't have a solution for this, but unfortunately, this does affect the circularity of the goods. Yeah, exactly. In the university I worked at, there was this rule that every 4 years, all equipment should be replaced. But then at the same time, they also entered an initiative that all of the materials that are then collected, all of the IT materials that are collected, are reused or repurposed in a way. And if it wasn't, so it was repaired in the first place, was optimized, and if it couldn't be used anymore within the university itself, it was then kind of provided to a charity to be used by kids in need, for example. And in that regard, they kind of made sure that they closed the loop. Also, parts that couldn't be used anymore in computers were then reused in different ways. But there's some options there. I can maybe send you a link to this project. Cloud storage also requires energy. Yeah, exactly. To download and keep in the computer memory. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting issue. Okay, the next sharing initiative that I'd like to share with you is drinking materials. So you see lots of drinking equipment here. For cold drinks, some of the universities I work with have been handing out water bottles for free. So the white water bottle you can see is used by students to tap water for free on campus because they don't have a lot of access to tap water otherwise. And so by providing tap water fountains and also providing these bottles that they can use, you avoid that they will drink like lots of stuff from the vending machines, which is also less healthy. It contains lots of sugar. And so this is a good way to incentivize people or students to tap water. A second example here is a rental system. So when it comes to organizing events, usually people tend to take like single-use ones that can be disposed of very quickly. You can switch to a rental system with deposit money for large events. For example, if you get a drink, you pay €1 more, and then you can get a reusable cup. And so at the end, you can exchange your cup for a new one, or you can exchange it for €1 when you leave the party. And so this rental system, it has a different, well, it requires some organizational skills, and it also requires a new mindset from the people involved, but it can be very successful if you can implement it on a larger scale. And there are two consequences which should definitely be avoided when you try to implement a rental system. The first one is that if there's no dedicated centralized system that is kind of operating as a borrowing or a borrowing system, then student unions, for example, or organizations can start procuring their own stash of cups, which of course doesn't help anyone, because then everyone has like 200 cups just being used once or twice a year. And so it's a good way to look into, well, it's good to look into one central system, because every plastic cup that is to be reused has to be reused at least 40 times or even more to actually be more sustainable than a single-use cup. Because a single-use cup, it sounds a bit contradictory, but it's not that CO2 intensive as we might think. So producing a sturdy one is quite intensive for the planet as well. So if you want to introduce this, make sure that the rental system also behind it is used a lot of the time and by multiple people. Also the washing, so the second consequence is that when you scale up this rental system to cater to a lot of people, like thousands or more, then you also have the need to have a lot of cups in place, or you want to introduce like a washing system to wash the cups on location or by a professional company. And this also requires another way of handling things and another approach to it. So if you have any stories about that, or if you want to share your experience or insights on that, please do so in the chat. For staff, they usually are so lucky to have access to a kitchen that is equipped with either glasses and tap water, or they have like a water station that runs on filtered tap water or soda water. And so they usually have this access. But when it comes to organizing events, this could be like meetings, but also like small or bigger events. It's a good idea to ask the catering to only provide glasses and empty pitchers, so you can fill them up with tap water. If not, if you request water, they come with bottles most of the time, or at least that's my experience. And so for hot drinks, which is an entirely different story, many universities have their own reusable mugs or travel mugs. That's also great for branding, of course. And it could be an option to stimulate this behavior of bringing your own cup by providing a discount. So either having a discount for people who bring their own cup, or asking more money, like a small fee for people who want to have a single-use cup. And a technical aspect of this is that you will have to make sure that vending machines, for example, and canteens that are maybe not human operated have to accept bring your own cups. So for many vending machines, there's like an automatic cup falling out of the system when you order a coffee or tea. And so to make sure that you can bypass that and use your own cups is of course essential in making this succeed. Also for hot drinks, there exist rental systems. For example, you can see the Billy Cup there. Billy Cup is an organization that provides a lot of cafes, like coffee shops, but also canteens nowadays at universities with this reusable cup. And it's a simple system of paying €1 and then you get the cup, and then you exchange the cup for a new one for your next coffee, or you hand it in and you get your €1 back. So it's the same system as the cold drinks cup, but it's more, oh yeah, Vessel works, okay. It's more, organized in a way that there's one company really supplying all of the different coffee shops with this cup. So it's quite widespread. So you can use it at any coffee shop at the same time, and you don't have to go to the same place to exchange it. And then for staff, usually they also have a kitchen then with coffee and maybe also a coffee machine already or a vending machine. And then it's easy, of course, to use your own mug. Let me know if I forgot something, and I will now pause recording. No, wait, I will add one more thing here. I have this picture ready for you. So it's a single-use cup, but it says certified compostable. And I was wondering if you have had any experience with it, or if you have been using it at your university, because I think it's a bit tricky to introduce this one. Why is that? You kind of, instead of looking for a new way to interact with materials, looking for a change in behavior, you kind of just switch out the single-use plastic ones with single-use certified compostable ones. And the thing here is that you can read it, it says it's only compostable in a commercial composting facility, which of course needs that you have to do a rigorous sorting and collecting, and then you have to bring it to a facility, which also costs money, transport, fuel, and so on. And also in the facility, it's being composted in a different way. You cannot just like throw it out in the garden. And if you hand out those cups, people might think they can just like throw it out there, and it will disappear within a day. So there's certain dangers connected to looking into replacing the single-use cup with something that's similar, maybe a little bit better, instead of trying to switch to creating a new behavior of working with materials like drinking equipment. So now for the repairing initiatives, we'll be looking into bicycles first. So every university wants to stimulate cycling among students, among staff, and that's why they often offer a university bike that students can rent at a discounted price, or for staff that they even get for free. So for example, one university, they offer staff either a parking spot or a free bike that they can use as long as they work at the university. For both systems, for students and staff, usually bike repair is either free or discounted, and it's included within the bike offer. And so additionally to that, universities can also choose to implement services that are either accessible on the streets. For example, on the left picture, you can see this machine that allows you to inflate your tires by yourself, or the atelier in the left corner, which is a place where you can go in as a student, and you can find all of the materials that you need, all of the tools to repair your own bike. And if you need any help, there is assistance. So people will help you with that as well, and they can also sell you spare parts at a very discounted price. The atelier is also organizing repairing and upcycling workshops, like you see in the middle picture with the cycle trophy. For staff members, it's also a good idea for departments to introduce pool bicycles. So these are cycles that are available for staff to run a quick errand or go to a different campus, and they're just like freely accessible. And of course, the repair here is also included within the offer from the university. In Belgium, we also have the system called Blue Bikes. It's a company that you can become a member of, and then you can, at any train station or most of the train stations there, you can rent a bike for 1, 2, 3 days at quite a low price. And so universities can stimulate staff going by train and then taking the bike instead of going by car all the way, by providing vouchers for that. And then the repairing is also included in the service. So for the Blue Bikes, you just give feedback to the company that something is broken, and you can always exchange your bike in the first 15 minutes for a new one if it doesn't work out. So the service of repairing is often included in these kind of rental systems, or these services that are offered to students and staff. The second example is about repairing from a more from a broader perspective. So we look at repairing household items, for example. And one initiative here is Repair Hub. The Repair Hub is a physical space filled with all kind of tools to fix or repair stuff. And you can bring your broken stuff there and fix it with the tools that are available, and sometimes also with assisted support during opening hours of the Repair Hub. If you want to fix something that's too heavy, or if it's in your dorm, for example, you can just borrow specific tools for free from the library of things. So the Repair Hub offers very qualitative materials, as you can see in the middle picture, and you can just borrow that for 1 week as a student for free, and then bring it back. And so they make sure that all the equipment that they have is used maximally by students, and that they don't have to procure anything themselves, and that they have access to it at all. That they have access to it, yeah. So for the Repair Hub, they also organize repairing and upcycling workshops, as you can see in the left corner, and also with the cute lamp penguin that was made during a Christmas-themed decoration workshop. And there's also this concept of repair cafes. I'm not sure if it's also available in the UK, but it's kind of a social gathering that connects people, volunteers who really like to fix stuff with people who have broken equipment. And so these two meet in this spot, and they can work together on repairing it. And it's for free, but you can always give a contribution, and you can have a drink and so on. So it's kind of also social events and stimulating local engagement. So universities could stimulate repair cafes by organizing one themselves, or they could also collaborate with an organization that is organizing these on a monthly basis, for example. And of course, next to that, we do have repair units at university that are there to help staff fix their work-related equipment, materials, and tools. So that's it for the repair opportunities. So I look forward to hearing your feedback or ideas and suggestions now. So that's it for today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, or if you want to comment on anything I've said earlier, please reach out to me via this email address. Thank you so much.